こんばんは。8月17日いきます。Borderline personalities COVID-19 and the Nordics. The pandemic cast Sweden and Denmark against type. In the television series The Bridge, a Danish and a Swedish detective must collaborate when a body is found on the Oresund Bridge between the two countries. The series was an international hit, but few foreign viewers recognized that the couples embody Danish and Swedish stereotypes of each other. The wisecracking, chain-smoking Copenhagen detective held to the Swedish views of Danes as jolly, messy and unreliable. His counterpart in Malmo seems to have Asperger's syndrome. Hughes too. Asperger's syndrome. The joke is that to Danes, her obsessive literalism and emotion-free sex life simply look like an acute case of Swedishness. COVID-19 has scrambled these stereotypes. Denmark implemented a meticulous lockdown. Sweden has taken a uniquely laid-back approach, keeping schools and restaurants open. Its infection and death rates are now far above its neighbors. As a result, when Denmark, Norway, but it has warned that its advice may change should more data become available on transmission dynamics of the disease or the effect of vaccine. Boris Johnson has called the race for vaccine the most urgent shared endeavor of our lifetimes. It is not, he insists, a competition between countries, but he would no doubt be delighted if the world's first vaccine came from Oxford, aside from extricating the world from a crisis. Such a triumph would go some way to mitigating too broad Britain's international reputation dealt by the government's poor management of the epidemics. はい、じゃあ今日はここまでです。あざっす。ありがとうございます。8月14日、18日いきましょう。Relation with China getting off the fence. Britain welcomes 3 million Hong Kongers and annoys China. At midnight on July 1st, 1997, Hong Kong passed from British to Chinese hand, starting a new era under the one country, two system policy. It allows the territory to retain a high degree of autonomy from Beijing. The arrangement was meant to stay in place for 15 years. On June 30, 2020, after less than half the agreed amount of time had passed, the era looked closer than ever to a premature end. China's rubber stamp parliament passed as an age or health problem, nearly half a working age. What are the odds? 何が奇妙なのかという。Ensuring people understand how to assess their own risk, especially in the event of the outbreak in their area, is crucial. In March, Britain's National Health Service sent letters to some 2.2 million people deemed to be at particularly high risk, telling them to avoid going out when the outbreak was at its worst. In future, doctors and patient organizations will be more closely involved, advising vulnerable people and their family on how to balance reducing their risk of contracting COVID-19 with their need for some degree of social life. じゃあ次の段落読んで終わりにしますね。In the early days of the pandemic, almost all countries tried to test, trace, and isolate those infected in an effort to quarantine them and break chains of transmission. But many governments such as Britain abandoned this approach when case numbers grew rapidly and they did not have enough testing capacity and staff to do the job. Panicked countries in Europe and elsewhere imposed national lockdown in an effort to prevent hospitals from becoming overwhelmed. はい、では今日はここまでしたいと思います。お疲れ様です。どうもこんばんは、バッキーです。8月9日いきますね。But the places that did best in the first months of the pandemic are those that never stopped contact tracing, says David Heyman of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. They include countries as varied as South Korea, Denmark, Germany, Vietnam, Uruguay, and Rwanda. Many European countries and some American states used their initial lockdown to expand their testing and contact tracing system and built apps that could make it possible to carry out the task more efficiently if there is a second wave. These improved systems have responded with varying degrees of success. In Spain, the health ministry believes it is still only detecting around a third of all cases, which does, however, mark an improvement on its rate of about 10% at the start of the country's epidemic. Of those 40 investment were failed, 守られてんのかな by the local press and security analysis as an endorsement of a new digital champion and of India itself. A recent flurry of deal making seems to corroborate this rosy view. In February, the Adani Group, another conglomerate, completed a $450 million sales of 25% of its Mumbai power operates to Qatar's government, and received a $900 million investment in a 37% stake in its gas operation by Total, a French oil giant. Talk of more deals around, notably one possibly involving Lockheed Martin that could enable the local production of jets for India's Air Force at a time of rising tensions with China. In May, Chinese soldiers engaged in a brief but deadly skirmish with Indian border forces. はあ、今日はもうここまでにしよう。お疲れ。はい、どうもこんばんは、バッキーです。8月20日いきましょう。ビジネスインインディアの話の続きでしたね。オーラブロードで続きからです。Look closer though, and the apparent sums up from foreign investors. こういうことやな。Foreign investors is not quite what it seems. After years of trying to make it on their own with mixed results, some foreigners appear to have concluded that getting ahead in India requires a powerful local partner. Mukesh Ambani, Reliance's boss and India's richest man, or Gautam Adani, the industrialist behind the Adani Group, fit the bill to a T. In recent months, this vision of India as a place where foreign money may be welcome but foreign competition is not has posed crippling costs. that seems to overwhelm sparse coverage and the cheap offset mean the cost to the industry is low. Assuming an offset price だけから offset って何なの？of price of $5 per ton of CO2. Mr. Rutherford estimated the change in the baseline will save airlines $350 million a year. That is less than 1% of the forecast operating cash flow in 2021 for a panel of 37 listed airlines. Foregoing those savings would have been a small price to pay for burnishing airlines' reputations as they seek billions in government bailouts. Accusation of greenwashing will make calls to attach potentially much costlier green strings on the rescue package grew loader. 難しいですね。ここまででお疲れ様です。
お疲れです。はい、使いました。一文だけ読みます。もうタイトルだけ。The Facebook boycott with a little help from its friend. はい。The social network is well placed to weather an ad boycott. はい、おつです。
はい、こんばんは。8月24日、ちょっと研修先の宿でね、1週間、ちょっとこっちでも、ちょっとだけでも読んでいきたいかなと思います。5分か、まあ、いけたら10分か読んだらいいかなっていうところかな。よし。ちょっと忙しかったからかな。The Facebook boycott. With a little help from its friends, the social network is well placed to weather an ad boycott. Social network know a thing or two about virality って何やろうな。virality 8月24。Virality. Still Facebook was probably surprised by the speed at which a small protest began on June 17th by a collection of the American civil rights group has gained steam. By July 1st, the Stop Hate for Profit campaign, which accuses it of publishing material that incites violence, helped pass with more than 6,000 firms, including giants like Pizza, Starbucks, and Unilever to pull ads from the platform. While the X-DOS principle is presumably part of it, so is peer pressure, which is rising as the list of boycotters lengthens. Admittedly, it is a particularly convenient time to make a stand, as firms pare back ad dollars amid the coronavirus recession. Starbucks, for instance, has spent $11 million on Facebook ads in America since March, when lockdowns began. During the same period in 2019, it spent $29 million, according to Pathmatics, a data company. If ad dollars move elsewhere, possible beneficiaries include smaller rivals like Snapchat, Pinterest, and TikTok, as well as YouTube, owned by Google. Some advertisers may even go back to client things like newspapers and TV, believes Andrew Lexman of eMarketer, a research firm. Yes, the damage to Facebook is likely to be small. After a brief boycott, induced Dips share price is back up near its all-time high. It's $70 billion, and business is built on 8 million advertisers, most of them tiny companies with marketing budget in the hundreds or thousands of dollars, and often rely on Facebook as an essential digital storefront. The 100 largest advertisers on the site account for less than 20% of total revenue compared with 71% for the 100 largest advertisers on American network television. And so far, only 100 of Facebook's top 50 ad buyers have joined the boycott. Facebook has promised tweaks. はい。Like Twitter, it will label posts that break its rules but are newsworthy enough to remain up. Other platforms tightened their moderation too. On June 29th, YouTube blocked various white supremacist channels. Twitch, a video site, suspended President Donald Trump's own channel for hateful conduct. Reddit deleted a program that not over hate speech. This point to pressure greater advertising. Politics American tech firm walked a fine line between Republicans who accused them of being too censorious and Democrats who want to close the moderation. Now, as Mr. Trump's cool numbers soon, Silicon Valley seems to be edging toward the Democratic view as things time perhaps to make new friends. じゃあ今日はここまでにしますね。おつです。
こんばんは。8月30日、一文だけ読みます。Logistics droning on automated deliveries get affiliate. Unnamed vehicle, airborne or earthbound, have been pressed into anti-pandemic service the world over. じゃあまた明日読みます。どうもこんばんは、バッキーです。8月31日読んでいきたいと思います。Logistics droning on automated deliveries get affiliate. Unnamed vehicle, airborne or earthbound, have been pressed into anti-pandemic service the world over. And Mexican slums, they spray disinfectant spray. Disinfectant from the sky, shouted drones with loudspeakers, schooled socially undistanced. Schooled socially undistanced Americans, Chinese, and Europeans. Most consequential, the popularity of contactless provision of food and medical supply is boosting the drone delivery business. Before COVID-19, marketers and makers, a research firm reckoned this would generate revenues of $800 million this year. Now it says $1 billion is closer to the mark, and has revised its forecast for 2022 from $1.6 billion to $2.2 billion. Many other analysts agree. Drone delivery firms typically operate vehicles on behalf of corporate clients. Some bigger drones, like those made by Twins Wheel of France, which can carry up to 300 kilograms, can cost $20,000 or more a piece, as much as a van. A kilowatt of California makes $2,500. Cat-like drones. Kilowatt's pre-pandemic fleet of 20 or so has grown to about 50. Flying mails and shopping in 2 California cities and 2 others in Colombia and Taiwan. 500 more kilowatts are in production, using them as just $2 to a shopper's bill. Another California firm, Starship Technologies, which despite its name makes wheeled drones, has seen its fleet expand threefold in a year to 1,000 across 5 countries. Since wheeled drones
are in effect self-driving cars, albeit passenger-less ones. They need authorities' approval to operate. This has not always been forthcoming. Now, the corona shock is softening up regulators, says Lou Kentaro of ZMP, a maker of rowing drones in Tokyo. ZMP plans to begin a trial in Japan's capital this summer, faster than expected. In September, another pilot project will see twins wheels droids shuttle mail for La Poste, France's postal service in Montpellier. Postal workers will handle the last mile to mailbox. Offshore, look kindly on COVID-proof contactless delivery, said Q Kong, in charge of drones. In charge of drones. In charge of drones at JD Logistics, an arm of JD.com, a Chinese e-commerce giant. Its vehicle cargo bays open with a scan of a recipient's face or a smartphone screen. On June 26, Amazon said it would buy Zoox, an autonomous car startup, for $1.2 billion. Drone Airmail remains fledgling. Materneta Maker Farm operates a limited network in Switzerland. Wing, Google's sister company, services part of America, Australia, and Finland. Zeppelin, which pioneered medical deliveries, by which drone in Ghana and Rwanda opened a small drone port in North California in May, but by one reckoning, less than a third of last year. 9月1日、もう一文だけ読みたいと思います。Finally, Chesapeake was slow to adapt when market forces turned against it. Some of its biggest rivals, such as EOG Resources, switched their focus from shale gas to shale oil as early as 2009, earning a bump up profit when price of crude soared. はい、お疲れ様です。おやすみなさい。はい、こんばんは。9月2日です。もう一文だけ読みたいと思います。そんなに進んでないよね。One point sold by the time Chesapeake did so. This real estate had already gone. It's Chapter 11 deal in which creditors have agreed to eliminate $7 million of debt. Will do nothing to lower the break-even cost of oil and gas production unless prices soar ね。はい。9月2日soar。多分ね、悪くなるという意味合いだと思うんですけど。So, which is unlikely given the pandemic-induced slump in demand. These costs remain too high to assume the firm can thrive after emerging from bankruptcy. はい、じゃあ今日はここまでおつです。こんばんは、9月5日です。はい、読んでいきましょう。Like Chesapeake, the shale industry has become a shadow of its former self. Former self って何なの？はい。9月5日。Former. It's former self の影になりました。The more investors poured money into shale oil after the financial crisis of 2007-9. The world's Gulf has producers, oil drillers in basins like the Permian in Texas, also extract associated gas as a byproduct, although some of it is fluid at great environmental cost. Most is dumped on the natural gas market, exacerbating the growth. The shale oil euphoria turned against the oilmen too. Their prodigious output has depressed crude prices since the mid-2010s. But like Chesapeake before them, they have struggled to cut costs fast enough. They were slow to do so even before prices collapsed as a result of COVID-19. The pain spread beyond the world cutters on June 30th. Royal Dutch Shell became the latest super major to slash the value of its global energy holdings because of falling prices. ExxonMobil, its bigger rival, remains one of the few holdouts, but in a sign of times, it is now worth less than Tesla, a maker of electric cars. 英語発音するの楽しいな。Nonetheless, Chesapeake's legacy leaves plenty to marvel at. It played a role in changing America's energy narrative from concern about order dependence of foreign suppliers for its energy to one of exuberance about domestic energy abundance and industrial competitiveness. This boosted American business confidence. After the financial crisis, it left a diplomatic and geopolitical windfall too, though one that has faded in recent years. The switch from coal to gas lowered America's carbon emissions, enabling Barack Obama to broker the Paris Agreement on climate change in 2015. While he was president, it unlocked the possibility of LNG export to weaken Russia's natural gas stronghold on Europe and to improve trade with China. Twilight of the Revolution. Ironically, the recent collapse in American oil production will curb associated gas supply, potentially supporting natural gas prices. Moreover, the coronavirus crisis may will lead to further bankruptcies and more consolidation in the shale industry, which could put the asset into the hands of big firms with stronger balance sheet, boosting profitability. The romance of the early wild cutters and landmen will be gone. The revolutionaries will be replaced by bureaucrats. The over-exuberant and undercapitalized industrial financial discipline will improve, but especially in these troubled times, spare a thought for Chesapeake until it got the better of the company. Its habits helped change the world. Finance and economy. Public finance, the debt toll. Hong Kong, the poorest country, may owe less to China than previously thought. 9月5日やっていきたいと思います。昨日ね、9月4日の深夜に撮ったからちょっと間違えて5日って言ったかもしれないです昨日。はい、じゃあやっていきたいと思います。Hong Kong bolstered their capital positions indeed. On June 29th, Wells Fargo said it would have to cut its payout. What this is? This is a small price to pay. One way to give yourself nightmare is to imagine that nothing had changed at the banks and they were still run with the skimpy capital levels they had at the end of the 2008. The Economist has used the Fed data to make a rough estimate of the impact today's loan losses would have had if an unreformed banking system had faced this year's U-shaped scenario. Its total core capital ratio potentially dropped to 1.5%, with several big banks figures touching zero. Example, technical insolvency faced with these depositors and counterparties would have fled. The taxpayer bailout in the parallel universe might have been even bigger than the financial crisis. はい、今日はここまでにします。お疲れ様です。はい、おはようございます。9月6日やっていきたいと思います。Instead of the banking system, a new resilience means that customers and investors did not rush to withdraw funds as in 2007-9. Banks were seen as safe. Lenders in turn have had the resources to extend overdraft to firms in need. Downstream is yet, though risky activities have migrated beyond the banking system. The result is その結果どうなったの is that even though taxpayers have not had to bail out banks, they have taxpayer する必要はなかったのになかったんだけど、ベイルアウト銀行救済する必要はなかったんだけど、しなくてもよかったんだけど、they have once again been exposed to huge potential losses というね、どういうことなんでしょうね。ベイルアウトする必要、銀行救済する必要しなくてもよかったのに、でも多くのね、losses 損失を見出してしまったということなのかな。The Fed has made purchases in and extended implicit guarantees to many markets, including those for junk bonds and exchange-traded funds, and is also lending directly to firms. Another worry is that the banking system outside America is less solid. Most European banks have reasonable capital ratios, but are far less profitable than American banks because they are insufficient and face lower interest rates and fragmented market. America's stress test revealed that about a quarter of the total buffers its banks possesses to absorb losses come from their healthy profit, which can offset hard debt rather than from their core capital. Many European lenders do not have the luxury, the boast of one of the largest ones, that though the shocks so far has been manageable, だけど a second wave of COVID-19 infection this year or next will be a major test for the financial sector. やっぱり第2波来るのかな。 Chinese banking sunk your battleship. Shanghai. China may let banks launch blockages to fend off. はい。blockages to fend off. Falling marauders. China put its first domestically built aircraft carrier into service last December, the culmination of 3 decades of work. The government hopes for a faster return on efforts to create what it calls an aircraft carrier class securities firm. Example, an investment bank powerful enough to prevail amid intensifying competition in the country's capital market. It is poised to draft ドラフトってなんなんやろな its biggest financial force into battle by allowing giant state-owned commercial banks to enter investment banks. China has long had its own version of America's Glass-Steagall separation, which until 1999 barred retail banks from investment banking. China's commercial banks can neither underwrite stocks nor offer brokerage services, which are left to securities firm or division決断 that officials believe makes the financial system safer. But now they may grant securities licenses to commercial banks in a trial, as first reported by Caixin, a business publication. The immediate prompt is falling competition. After years of dragging its feet, China scrapped the falling ownership limit in its securities sector last year. Big Western players such as Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, and UBS have either gained control of existing joint venture or launched fully owned operations. Foreign firms have struggled to make a dent in commercial banking in China, held back by their limited branch networks. In investment banking, though, they may be more formidable thanks to their technical know-how. Even without the foreign threat がなかったとしても、China has been eager to whip its brokers into shape. Officials want capital markets to lessen the burden on banks, which last year provided 2/3 of all new credit. The 10 biggest Chinese banks have roughly 30 times more assets than the 10 biggest security firms, and are also far more profitable. The securities industry's main problem is extreme fragmentation. 131 registered firms providing similar services fight for clients by slashing fees. Some even underwrite bonds for nothing. Changing is unlikely to be revolutionary at first. Changing っていうのはレボリューショナリーにはならない、革命的にはならないよねってことが多い。It is not China's way to suddenly implement a new policy and wipe out existing companies, says Chen Jihae of Novel Arrays Technology. アーカイテクノロジーかな。Investors agree the share prices of China's largest brokers fell by about 5% in June 2009 when the news first broke, but have since recovered. Still, the securities industry could look very different in time. The government wants to see consolidation. Granting banks brokerage license may squeeze out the also runs. Consider, for example, medium-term notes, the quasi-bond market in which commercial banks can already participate. Of the top 20 underwriters by income, 17 are banks and just 3 are brokers. A common criticism of universal banking is that it combines two irreconcilable cultures with the boldness of investment bankers, potentially swamping the prudence of commercial bankers. Yet, China has shown that there are also dangers to separation. The stock market crashed in 2015 after the securities regulator failed to rein in a boom in margin financing by brokers, a risk that the bank regulator might have been better equipped to detect. In any case, it is hard to imagine China's lumbering banks becoming red in tooth and club brokers. The biggest, such as ICBC, already operate in investment banks in Hong Kong, primarily offering plain vanilla service to state-owned firms. More aggressive mid-tier lenders could outdo them in marketing shares and structuring deals. They are still huge by global standards. China Merchants Bank, for example, has a market capitalization of $120 billion, nearly twice that of Goldman Sachs, a Wall Street institution. In Chinese terms, it would count as a naval cruiser one step down in size from an aircraft carrier, but still a big step up from the ragtag flotilla in the country's capital market today. はい、眠たい。全然わからんかった単語、オツです。